think what we see time and time again, some of in the past, it was so much easier and cheaper to throw cheap labor, especially from low-cost locations, at problems than rather solving the problems. I think what we're seeing now, the opportunity, for instance, through a blend of technology and humans, so the term is digital labor, to fundamentally change the way some of we address those issues. But again, that requires a different way of looking at operating model.
I look at this from a data perspective, right? If you're looking at it from a consulting perspective, a lot of people see this cheap labor, bad processes, and then they want to re-engineer the new process and they want to see how to put this into labor. Like from a data perspective, I see the cheap processes, they're not very good. Actually, they slow down the business and the change and so on. You replace them, exactly that same shit with totally digital, automated, AI-based processes. Then you collect the data, how these processes are used, and then you use that data to redesign the new process. What do you think about that?
No, I think I'm with you. I think that what we see time and time again, I think you told me that, Chris. I was listening to you. I think it comes back to Moreau's paradox. I think the way the amount of data we need to describe change in our environments. I think typically we're just optimizing all the known problems. But again, that's just a minimal. That's almost it's not low level. That would almost not a fair way of describing. But it's, I think you would call it standardized way of automating. But I think to really solve complex, describe changes in complex processes, we need completely different ways of managing our data. Hence, I think your approach, has a lot of merit as far as I can tell.
Well, I mean, we've been working with data and semantic data for a long time just to build the AI. And now, because I'm so fascinated by AI and so on, we've only ever talked about the AI part. And now we found that we are actually giving out this data platform to the market, and the market really is trying, or our clients are really trying to make the first step before they start running, is by getting the data right. And I think that was a step that we have missed for a long time. I mean, have you seen this? Other people just missing out on data before they do AI?
No, absolutely. And I think what we see time and time again, and it's a bit chicken egg. On one hand, all the noise you're hearing from the market, especially in marketing, supposedly what AI or any new set of technology can do, but especially in the context of AI, so many organizations are keen to scale out. But the moment they're scaling out, they're figuring out all the issues you were alluding to. If you don't have thought about a holistic and structured way to manage your data, how on earth can you leverage that data to apply a new set of algorithms on that data? And I think there we seeing the moment they want to scale out, they pull back straight away. Most of them, because as I realize, they have to do their operational homework, if you like, because without structured data, good data, you can't take care of all the innovations you and other organizations bring to the table.
Well, I think it's not so much about structure, right? Because if you look at the data pyramid, then you have data, which is unstructured stuff. You have information, putting structure to data. And then you have knowledge, which means you start making data useful, or you filter the information that is useful. And then you have intelligence when you start applying that knowledge to solve specific problems. I believe that the big revolution that kind of most of industry missed out on is the topic of semantic data, where you finally make data machine readable all the way, and you don't always, when you want to reuse data, need the original software developer, the original project manager, the original data model guy, and so on, but where the understanding and the purpose of data is stored with the data. Right? And the platforms are doing this all the time. Because they have knowledge graphs, and the solution to this is semantic knowledge graph, whatever you want to call it, right? But it's the same thing. How come that not the industry has copped onto this? Industry is still using like old-fashioned data processing, like input data set, program runs, output data set. And that's what they do. Yeah, Why are they not in map of the world data set, process, get back, change the world, have data that represents the change?
I think it's back to my point on the nuanced understanding. I think for most people, if you argue what's a world model, what's a contextual data, I think often if I ask the same question, I get stares. I'm used to being stared at. Probably it's just my German accent, I suppose. But beyond that, I think that's where the education, if you like, education as some of the more advanced way of engaging with customers around innovation has to cut in, because broadly the market is stuck in the mindset of statistics and standardized processes or standardized experience.
Is that where people mistake correlation for causality?
Absolutely.
That is still around. That's really bad. Okay, I can tell you that people who buy skis will die of asphyxiation in the night from their duvets. That is clearly correlated if you look at the data sets. And there is no causal relation. Also, the stork brings the babies.
Exactly, you had it here first, exactly.
Crazy. Funny. Crazy and funny. So, but still, why are people not... The whole... You know that the world is not machine-readable, right? But if you want to have a machine autonomously or independently or whatever you want to call it, act on the world for you, you'll have to give it some map, right?
Absolutely.
So that means you can't just have data chunk for input, program data chunk for output. You actually need something that describes the context, and then you interact with it, and thereby changing the context. So this is how data changes. Like, is this in the mindset of anyone, or am I just the crazy person trying to...
I think it's very few, and it's back to the point I was trying to make. Again, some of them have to invest in call it marketing, call it education, call it something else. But it's so difficult to cut through that noise, because, again, the noise always is what's broadly discussed. And I think that it's a misguided understanding especially what agentic AI can bring. As if literally sort of agentic AI, somewhat mysteriously, all the challenges the organization had over the years, disparate set of data, it's not enough description of business logic, all the way to largely some of deterministic ways of thinking around automation. Allegedly, agentic AI is changing that overnight. So again, how do you cut through that noise? So you have to create that. So I think that knowledge is not there. And it's difficult because, again, people get excited, often even frightened, just generative AI. Agentic, I think we haven't even scratched the surface, goal-driven automation, the way I would describe it. I'm sure it's not the right sort of academic term for it, but I think that's almost, for me, where the real value of AI will come to the fore.